According to the USDA, the average grocery cost of a family of 5, which is what our family is between $11,000 on a thrifty budget and $18,000 on a more liberal budget. This past year, my family spent $4,400 on our entire food cost for the year, which averages about $367 a month for our family of 5. I'm gonna share my top 17 tips and habits that help me keep my family's grocery budget much lower than the national average. I also want to show you what I'm going to be making my family to eat. Today, I'm going to be making some split pea lentil soup after looking in my pantry and seeing what all I had left over. I have some carrots that I need to use and some potatoes that I want to use up. And I have some split peas that I have in storage. I also have a already opened can of pumpkin puree in the refrigerator, so I'm gonna be making some pumpkin dessert bread for us to eat on over the next couple days also. Every year in America, $408 billion worth of food is thrown away. The typical family of 4 throws away about $1,600 worth of food every year. So my first bit of advice is to reduce the amount of food that you are wasting and stop throwing away food. Every time you throw away food, you are literally throwing money away. That is money that you have spent on those products and time that you have spent working for that money is just going to the landfill. If this is a problem that you have, I really recommend that you are writing down everything that you throw away so that you can hold yourself accountable, and then also kind of think of creative ways that you could use that food before it goes bad. One great way to cut down on food waste is to meal plan. Have a plan for the week, have a grocery list, and know what you're gonna be making that week so that you're not buying excess things that you don't really know what to do with. A lot of people have the best of intentions when it comes to eating, particularly like healthy foods, produce, and stuff like that, and then they just never get around to it. So make sure that you have a plan on what you're gonna do with the foods that you are buying. I also shop my pantry every week as I am coming up with my meal plan to kind of see what is about to go bad and what I need to use up right away, what I have left over from the week before, so that I am not having any food waste at all. And that is something that I have done with this split pea soup that I'm going to be making. I'm gonna link the recipe down below, but I already had almost all of these ingredients. I just had to buy some celery and an onion. Everything else I already had. If it's something that I'm not able to use right away, some sort of produce that's in my refrigerator, you can cut it up and freeze it before it does go bad. If you are just getting started on meal planning and you don't have a lot of recipes in your head to work off of and it seems overwhelming, you can ask ChatGPT to create a meal plan for you with the ingredients that you have. Just type in the ingredients that you want to use up and ask AI to create a meal plan for you. It works very well. The best if used by date is best if used by, not necessarily it's time to throw it away. It is a lot of the times just when the quality and the flavor starts to lose its potency. So you can still use a lot of items that have a best by date well past that date that's on there. If it's something that's super perishable, then you probably don't want to risk it, but any sort of like canned item or dried item is probably going to be good much longer than that best by date. I'm going to be going over the rest of my tips while I am making dinner for tonight. My next tip is going to be to cook from scratch. I think that it tastes so much better, and honestly, since I have learned how to cook, I don't even want to eat out anymore because my food always tastes better. I'm not even that amazing of a cook, but I just know what and how I like my food, and I can make it exactly the way that I want it. It's definitely healthier to cook at home. Not only is it going to save you money, but it is just going to cut out a lot of the processed foods, unhealthy foods, salt, fat, and it's really just not as time consuming as you think, especially once you learn what your favorite meals are. I love to use the crock pot which is what I'm doing today. And I like to cook in bulk for leftovers. This soup that I'm making is going to be enough for dinner for my family tonight, and then also we'll have leftovers for the next day. Tip number 6 is to eat in-season produce. This is going to save you money because all of that produce is just readily available. In the fall, I love apples, squash, carrots, and in the summer, things like zucchini, tomatoes, melons are all going to be the most cost effective. Not only are you going to save money, but you are also going to eat the freshest produce that you can, which has a lot more nutrients in the food. And then you can learn how to store this food for use all year. You can learn how to dehydrate, how to can, how to keep certain things cold, like potatoes, keep it in a cool, dark place for it to last a lot longer. You can freeze stuff. And then that way you can buy this stuff in bulk when it's in season, when it's on sale, and have access to it all year. And then if you don't and things are expensive, maybe just be adaptable and learn how to not use those items right then and just wait and be patient. Being flexible is a great skill to learn because, like, if a recipe calls for, let's say it calls for broccoli, but broccoli's not in season or you don't have broccoli at the store, you can sub it for something that you either already have or something that's on sale. You could omit it completely, and just, learning to be flexible and learning how to substitute stuff will save you a lot of money. You do not have to follow a recipe to the T. This is one reason why I love to make mix and match soups so much, is because soups are very forgiving in what you put in them. And so you can really utilize what you have available to you. We very rarely, if ever, buy any type of convenience food. Things like pre-cut produce, microwavable meals, boxed meals. We really try to buy single ingredients, whole foods. So carrots, celery, potatoes, split peas. And we use all of these single ingredients to create a meal from scratch. When you are buying convenience foods, there is really a hefty markup for those foods. Plus there's usually added salt and other preservatives to keep those foods shelf stable for a longer amount of time. We do not buy any drinks. We don't buy soda, bottled water, sports drinks, juice. We only drink water, or we make coffee and tea at home from water that we have available to us. Sodas and bottled water and sports drinks and all that stuff is so expensive, and the price on those seems to have just risen astronomically with inflation. We do have a water filtration system. We have a Berkey, so we are able to filter all of our tap water. But over time, that has saved us a lot of money, and we have safe, clean drinking water without having to purchase a bunch of bottled water. Plus, the bottled water comes in plastic, and a lot of bottled water is actually tap water. So, it's just a better system for us to not have to buy any drinks whatsoever. So the veggie broth that I just put in the soup was homemade veggie broth that I made from some leftover vegetables that we had, like the tops of carrots and onions and all that stuff. Otherwise, I would have just used water. This parsley that I have here came from our garden. So if you can start a garden or grow anything, that is my next tip, even if it is just seasonings and herbs. The next meal that I am going to make is going to be the pumpkin dessert bread. I have everything here already. The open can of pumpkin that I needed to use up, that was in our refrigerator, and then the egg. We do have chickens, and that egg came from our own personal chickens. We generally cook with a lot of really low-cost ingredients, things like beans, lentils, potatoes, squashes, oats, rice, and bananas are all really cheap. So when I am trying to put together our meals, I think about those foods as a base and try and add other ingredients to it, particularly like in season produce. I also like to buy food in bulk, especially things like spices, rice, oats, beans, items that we use a lot of. And so I have storage with a lot of these bulk items. I don't store a ton of food because we don't have a ton of room for storage, but I do store those items that we are going to use a lot of, and I'm constantly replacing them. When I am going shopping, I calculate the cost per unit of an item. Sometimes the bulk items are not always the least expensive, especially if you are going to like Sam's and Costco and they have the name brand items versus the like store brand items of Aldi, then you are going to end up paying more for that name brand even though it is in bulk. So you really need to look at the price per unit. In a lot of stores, most stores are going to have that underneath the price of the item. I will also look for items that are on sale, particularly bakery items if I happen to buy bakery items or produce. A lot of times the produce that is going bad or has a bruise on it or something like that has a very deeply reduced price, and you can get a great deal on it, and you can just cut off the bad spots, use it in soups and stews, go ahead and freeze it, and it is just fine to use like 90% of that item. The next tip is to focus on nutrient and calorie dense foods. We kind of live in a culture of like diet culture where the focus is on low calories, low fat, and these foods are really not efficient, and it makes you buy more food to meet your nutritional needs. So we live in a culture of abundance, overabundance, and so we have generally access to a lot of foods, but if you're trying to cut cost, then buying those low calorie, low fat foods is not efficient. You need to focus on nutrient and calorie dense foods that are higher in calories, higher in nutrients, and not be scared of those foods. Foods like beans, nuts and seeds, potatoes, bananas, and eggs are all excellent foods to eat. You can't eat a ton of calorie-dense foods unless you want to gain weight, but that makes it efficient and it makes it a lot more cost-effective. You just have to be aware of what you're eating. And then my next tip is to consider doing 1 meal a day or 2 meals a day, some sort of intermittent fasting. This is something that we really started this past year because we were living off grid a lot and we didn't have access to, it was just less convenient for us to cook multiple meals a day. Now this is for the adults, not for kids. Kids need to eat often. But what I started doing is I started cooking one big meal, and we would eat it for lunch and dinner, and the kids would also eat breakfast and snacks. There is just less cooking involved, less cleanup. It's so much more simple. You do not always have to eat the typical 3 meals a day. That's not always how humans ate. It's just something that we have been taught to do in most of our cultures. But getting away from that mindset and eating one big meal a day and a snack or a couple snacks is very cost effective and very efficient. In case you were wondering, this pumpkin bread was absolutely delicious. It was one of the best desserts that I've ever had. Very good. If you like pumpkin bread, I would definitely recommend trying this. I will link the recipe to this down below, and then also this split pea soup, which was also very good and very hearty. This lasted us a couple days that we were able to eat on this. I just put this parsley in at the end and a lemon, and I just stick this whole thing in the refrigerator just like this in the crock pot thing. So simple, so easy, and it just really took no time at all. Super cheap, super affordable meal. If you are starting from the very beginning, trying to really cut down your grocery budget, and you are not doing a lot of these things, don't feel like you have to do them all at once. Just pick 1 or 2 things every week to really focus on. You don't want to make it so overwhelming that you give up. So if you do not cook from scratch at all, start adding 1 or 2 new recipes every week. The more you do it, the easier it'll get, the more natural it'll come. Cooking and buying groceries on a budget is a learning process that you can continue to develop and get better over time. It is not an overnight thing. Every little step that you take, every little tip and habit that you add to your life is going to save you money. So it's a long game. It doesn't have to be all at once. Pretty soon it will become so routine that you are going to be spending less without even having to think about it. It's just going to be second nature. It's going to be a habit. So start working on those habits today, slowly, and you could save so much money in this upcoming year.